Can you feel it coming? Like drifting around the turn? Dude, just Dodge Charger, Dodge Intrepid from 2003? What's up, and welcome to another episode of the SBL podcast, Scott and Ian Show. Let's go! I feel like I'm timing it a little bit better each and every time, getting more confident on the let's go, working on it, working on it, work in progress. Are we all a work in progress? Hi, my name is Ian Martin Allison. I'm half of the team of the Scott and Ian Show. Scott Devine is the other half. We do this podcast every week. I'm doing some intros, talking to you about the episode, and talking to you, too, just a little bit about what we do at SBL. But on today's episode, it is all about slap. And in the beginning of the episode, Scott's like, you said slap of the bass, and I feel like I didn't, but I just went with it because, hey, you know what I mean? He's the boss. You know what I'm saying? Scott Devine is the boss, but look, don't say slap of the bass to me. You say slap of the bass, I slap at your face. It's not true. I don't condone violence. I'll never slap your face. But you say slap of the bass to me and I go, huh? I go, huh? Cool. Yeah, we do. Yeah, that's what we do. We slap the bass. But hey, you know what? Deep down, I really love slapping the bass. I also love Paul Rudd. I love that movie. Is that I Love You, Man? I love that movie. And I love slapping the bass. Dude, it's incredible. It's one of the coolest things you can do. Guess what? You can't slap a viola. No. You can't slap a piano. Somebody's going to be like, no, you can open the lid and you can, don't give me that. Don't give me that. Yeah, you can slap a little guitar, but you're not slapping the drums, right? Slapping is something that is reserved for the electric bass. It is a celebration of the electric bass. We're going to talk all about that. This is part one of a two-parter. We had to break into two. There's so much slap to talk about, right? But hey, check it out. We are about to release an unbelievable accelerator, a brand new accelerator program on SBL called the Slap Bass Accelerator. I can look you in the eye, or I can speak to you right into your ear holes and tell you right now that this is the most unbelievable slap course that has ever been created for the bass guitar. I don't care which one you've checked out. This one is going to blow your mind. We're going to take you from never having slapped the bass before all the way to doing some really advanced stuff, and it is a step-by-step process. I flew out to Leeds. I recorded it with Scott side by side. We laughed. We cried. We actually did. There was a moment where we played something in unison that felt so good, and I looked at him and I laughed, and a tear came down, dude. A tear came down. Am I proud of that? I'm not too proud of that, but it happened. You know what? It happened. And real men also cry. Do you know that? Real men also cry. So check it out. Tears of joy. Slapping can give you that. It also helps you think about your bass like a drummer. And I think it really helps you get together your sense of evenness in subdivisions. And that is what everybody wants, whether you're playing slap, fingerstyle, pick, whatever. So check it out. And hey, if you haven't checked out the platform, dive in, take your free 14-day trial of scottsbasslessons.com. And if you feel so led, check out the Slap Bass Accelerator. I stand behind it. I think it is an amazing program. That's enough of me, but now it's more me on the Scott and Ian Show. Let's dive into the episode.
Is this 40 or something like that?
Oh yeah, this is 40.
This is 40.
Yeah,
it was so fucking on the money. I was just like, this is exactly what it's like. The way that he's just
Doesn't
sort
that
of
movie
like
start out with him like taking a Viagra and his wife is pissed at him that he has to? Isn't that the one?
Yeah, he's sort of like he's basically like eating loads of shit when he like keeps sneaking outside to put things in the bin, and he's like fucking like gorging on them, and she's like smoking when she shouldn't, and I'm just like, This is actually like a great reflection of what 40's like, actually.
Oh my God, there's a moment too in that, I think about this moment a lot, where he's in the bathroom texting or like on his phone, And she's like, you've been pooping for 40 minutes. Like, like when you're taking a shit is the only time that you have any time to yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's at a party, isn't it? She's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm taking a shit. And she's like, you've been taking a shit for 40 minutes. He's just like doom scrolling or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, I know.
And then there's another bit where he's sort of like, he's lying down, he's got his arse in the air, and he's like, there's something wrong with my asshole. And she's like, what? I need you to have a look. And she's like, I don't want to look. And he's like, I need you to have a look. And she's like, it's a hemorrhoid. And he's like, oh.
Yes, that's right. Oh my God, he's great, dude. I'm going to change this is a new one, right? I'm just going to change my jacket because I have one here. Hold on.
No, we haven't. We just changed, didn't we? Did we just change? I can't remember.
Dun, 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 dun. Woohoo! Take it off! Put it on!
Dude, that jacket that you had on, we've not filmed anything in it, I don't think. I'm sure that was like... Because I went and changed, didn't I? And then you changed. Yep. But then you've changed again. Did you change again?
Well, yeah, because Wait.
We didn't record one. No?
Wait, really? Oh my God,
we didn't do it.
Had. Okay, we didn't do it. But we've done 2. Oh, but I did 2 in the pink hoodie. I did 2 in the pink hoodie. I was thinking 3, and I have 3 outfits. Fuck it, dude. I'm gonna wear this. I'm in it now. Dude, my mind is toast.
It's all
my
good,
God.
Dude. It's all good, dude. Okay. Yeah, but that, like, what is it called? This is 40, isn't it?
This is 40. It's great.
What are your 40? What are you, like, now you're 44. We're at the same age, right? What is and if anybody's wondering sort of like why we're talking about being 40, you're just gonna have to put up with it.
Yeah,
because
dude,
we are 40 and we want to talk about it.
I didn't even know that you'd started the pod.
We've started.
Did the good people see me change my jacket?
We could maybe want to keep that bit in. For like, what is your favorite era in terms of like? Let's just remove anything from 10 years 10 to 0. That's removed, right?
Yeah.
10 to 20, 20 to 30.
Yes.
30 to 40, 40 to 44. What's been your best or most enjoyable era? From let me just be like, I'll hit you up with a better question. In terms of like how you feel, like in terms of like being comfortable in your own skin, because I had a wild time in my early 20s and stuff like that.
Right.
But what about just being sort of like, what's been your most enjoyable period of your life so far?
Recent. I mean, other than all the chaos and insanity in the world, that was very, very difficult for me and, my city and Minneapolis and the neighborhood and everything. I would say when I turned 40, and I'd like to point out that I am still just a spring chicken at 43, Scott Devine.
Oh, you 43?
Yeah, dude. But I got a birthday. That birthday's coming. It's round the bend, dude. But yeah, when I turned 40, that's when I was like, okay, I need to do something, right? I mean, I've told this story probably in different iterations over the pod, but, from teens to 30, I was in a rock band, and from 30 to 40, I was a sideman. And then when I turned 40, I was like, all right, I need to do something for me. I need something that I can control. I want to, think about branding myself. And before I was 40, I was like, like gag me. Like I never wanted to think about that. Like the branding, yuck. Like that just seemed ridiculous. Yeah. And then I really went hard the other way after I turned 40, started to do Instagram. But yeah, I think when I turned 40, there was this thing of like, man, I've been pretending for a long time. I've been pretending to like certain things, and I've been really trying to make different artists and songwriters and potential employers and colleagues and collaborators think that I was a certain way and that I liked certain things and didn't like certain things, and was really trying to position myself. And then when I turned 40, I discovered that the real leverage is being yourself, and really, really finding like solace in your own skin and not apologizing for what you like and who you are. And really deciding that that's cool to be who you are, and then pushing it outward and showing the world who you are. And that's really difficult because people are scared, people are scared to post because they're scared what their mom's going to say, or their, their friends, their snarky friends. And, and I had a little of that. My parents actually very supportive, but I had friends that were, not happy about what I was doing on social media. And you just have to put that stuff aside. You have to say, that's fine. It's not for you then. It's going to be, it's going to be for someone else. So, I mean, I'm a late bloomer, Scott Devine. I don't feel like I really found truly like a zone, a passion, a path, and really a comfort with it until I was 40. And I mean, it's a work in progress, dude. I'm still trying to figure it out, but that was definitely a turning point for me. How about for you?
Yeah. And if anybody's wondering, the question came because we were talking about a film called This Is 40 with Paul Rudd in it. And it actually came from you going, slap a the bass. You said slap a the bass. And that made me think about Paul Rudd. And then that made me think about that This Is 40. And now we're talking about being 40. But
and I hate when people say slap a the bass. I hate it. I hate when people say that to me. Like, you take your bass out at a gig and someone's like, oh, what do you play? I'm like, oh, your bass player slap a the bass. And I'm like, I will slap at your face. Shut up, man.
Slap at your face. Love it.
But I guess I did say it.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking. We're going to be talking about slap bass in this episode. We're going to be talking about slap bass.
Yeah.
But for me, it's really hard to pin down actually. But I think that I have been the most fulfilled and I guess sort of like just comfortable and fulfilled and comfortable and just sort of like feeling kind of like pumped to do stuff over. It wasn't there's a crossover. I think it was like late 30s.
Yeah.
Late 30s and then up until now I just feel great. I've just felt great.
Yeah.
I've just felt really, really great about it. And I think it's partly to do with SBL, the SBL era, like
for sure.
It was rocky when I first started it because I didn't know if it was going to be a thing. Right. But then when it became a thing, like that's been a trip. That's been great. Yeah. Like for me personally, just like in terms of my self-esteem and just like, oh, I can freaking grow something and we can do this and
unbelievable.
I can work with great people like yourself and the team, and I've got like incredible relationships with them, and so that's been really fulfilling. So like a lot of like community and fulfillment has happened sort of like in building out SBL, which is great. And then the other part of it is I've really loved having kids actually, and what that's done to me personally.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like, like this had this new, it's like, I don't know, like people, friends of mine that haven't had kids, and when I speak to them, they're like, oh, what's it like? And it's like, well, yeah, like it comes with all of this responsibility and stuff like that. But it's also, there's this other element that it's hard for me to, I guess, sort of like quantify. And it's like there's like another layer of being a human, another experience that is really hard to quantify without actually doing it. It's like, what's it like when you do a bungee jump? Well, it's pretty freaking scary, and it's like, but it's really hard to kind of, package that up and explain to somebody what it's like to do a bungee jump, right? Same with kids, but in a kind of like fulfilling way, much more fulfilling than doing a bungee jump. There you go. But so it's, so SBL and having kids have, for me, given me this like really fantastic experience. And so I would say late 30s to where I am now has been like the best. It's been fucking awesome in terms of my life. And I'm just sort of like super pumped in terms of, where we're going.
You did this thing when I was out there the last time where on a weekend you took your son's story to a Transformers like conference or like a place where it was like a show, like a trade show where they were selling Transformers and stuff. And dude, I don't even think that I've told you since then. I was like so moved by that. Like that you took the time to do that with him, and you don't think that what he likes is dumb, Oh, dude, like you're building a relationship with your son, with your kids, with Winter too, I'm sure, You are. I mean, I see it in you and Lisa, where like you honor them. You let them speak at the table surrounded by adults. Story told that, told that story, right? At the end of the meal at the pub. And he was talking about it and he was into it, and you're not shutting it down and you're not saying, you shouldn't spend your money on Transformers. That's dumb. Or like, you're just not doing that. And it made me feel like, it made me want to be a better dad, dude. Like when I came home from that trip, I was like, I want to dig into more of like what my kids like. And my son now, Dash, is crazy about Legos. And so, he got this set, he saved up money, but I helped him a little bit. I paid the tax, he saved up all his money, and he's he was so close. I'm like, I'll tell you what, buddy, I'll pay the tax, and then you'll be able to, he got this Lego AT-AT, and we built it together. And man, like it's so important, I think, to not shit on what your kids like. And there's so many parents that just that don't actually care about what their kids like, or they pretend to, and then the kids kind of feel that they don't. And man, that's something that I feel like you and Lisa are doing so well, and it's inspirational. And I just want to tell you that.
Oh, dude, thanks, man. And it's something that I want to get much better at as well. Like something I've been thinking about recently. After that trip that I went on with Story, actually, to the Transformers convention, we felt really connected. I actually felt it. It was a real visceral kind of like, I just really felt it.
Yeah,
I was like, and he felt it. We were like hanging out, and it kind of like, and it went on for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then I actually felt the connection, that sort of like real closeness. I felt it actually going back towards that baseline of like, his dad and stuff. I was like, that's actually something that you can control in terms of if you're dialed in, as hopefully we're trying to be as parents, like we're dialed into that connection with our children, making sure that they feel really connected to us. If we're being conscious of it, if we do feel that it's decreasing and we feel like it's, going back down or whatever, having a button, like having a lever to pull where we can actually increase that connection, I think is really important. Yeah. So what I've been thinking about doing, and we're really connected. I think that the connection comes from experiences. It's shared experiences.
Yes.
I'm sure that that's where it comes from. So for instance, like we went camping over the weekend and it was fucking awesome.
Oh, cool.
It was in the middle of nowhere. It was a field.
Yes.
It was with like some of our friends, just sort of like we're really close with another family. So we all went camping together. Their kids are there. Our kids are there. There's no internet connection. There's nothing for the kids to do except run around in the field and play with stuff. With twigs and just shit that they find. And like they went on wildlife hunts where they were like freaking each other out because they thought they'd found snakes. And then they found this freaking massive big stick and they nicknamed it the staff of puberty. I was like, dudes, nobody here is like above the age of 11. Why is this called the staff of puberty? They had no good answer, but I just loved that they called it the staff of puberty. And we were like there for like 2 or 3 days and we made fires and it was freezing and it's like all of that stuff. And then we felt really connected. So what I'm really trying to do is actually like calendar that stuff out because they are not responsible for it. Therefore, we are responsible for it. So what I'm really going to try and like, I haven't done it yet. I'm just saying it out loud to make myself more accountable to it. But I'm going to start sort of like trying to do like one thing every week where it's either an experience with one kid or both kids that is in the calendar and it is like an immovable rock. I have to go do it. Whether that's, whatever it is, because I just think sort of like, it's just too easy not to do. I really love that connection when I feel it with my kids. And I will say that I am more connected to, I think that Story's got sort of like a stronger connection to me than Winter. And I think that, it's probably because I spent more time with Story as a kid.
Yeah.
Winter came along. Yeah, firstborn, like, and it was a lot of the time, it was like me and him, especially when Winter was like, super young and Lisa was having to like look after her as a little baby. Me and Story go and hang out, and I haven't had that time with Winter, so I'm really trying to schedule it in. And if it sounds a bit lame, if people are like, scheduling stuff.
No, dude, that's being a good dad, man.
Well, I think
that's
that's
being a responsible parent, man. No,
I think it just doesn't happen. Or for me, at least,
Totally.
it doesn't happen if I don't schedule it. So I'm just going to start scheduling it. And I think that is something I really want to lean into. Like, that's a whole different conversation in terms of, like, I'm trying to do more of that stuff. what I'm trying to do is create more hard containers in my life. Hard container. Like, this is when you do that time.
Yes.
It's a hard container. You do not do that out of that time. This is another hard container, like, you know, and I'm trying to lean into that.
I need
because
that in my life, dude.
yeah,
Yes.
dude, because, well, I think that, like, for a long time I've just not had that, and like things splurge over into each other, and
Of course, God,
you know,
yes.
you don't do the things that you should do because all of that shit, right? So I'm really trying to get better at having harder containers.
Man,
yeah.
That's so good. I feel like too, like you're talking with your second born with Winter having less. I've always felt that with Dash, my son too. Everly and I have done music stuff together. My daughter, who's older, we love Star Wars together. And then Dash, we just never had a thing. And check this out, man. Like, even for me with Dash, it's been going on bike rides in the evening. And I'm talking, sometimes they're like 7 minutes where we just get on our bike. We just moved to a new neighborhood that's really fun to bike in. We just get on our bikes and we ride, and we just go up the cul-de-sac and then down and around by his school and then kind of home. And I push him on the swing for a second. Maybe it takes 20 minutes. But like last night, Scott, we got out in the garage. And he had just had a thing where he was struggling with some like homework from school and got upset and threw his pencil and was mad. And, you know, we got I'm like, do you want to do a bike ride? Yeah. And we got in the, in the garage, and he goes, Dad, I think that doing bike rides is our passion. And I was like, yes. Yeah, man. I love that. I love that. He goes, I think it's our thing. I'm like, dude, I love that we have a thing. And he goes, yeah. He's like, you know what? Even when I'm really mad at you, I still really like to go on these bike rides. And I said, you know what, dude? Even when I'm really mad at you, I still like to go on these bike rides. You know? And dude, it all melted away. You know, it all melted away.
Yeah.
He was struggling to finish that last word on his homework and got pissed. And now we're on a bike ride and it's all good. And we come back from the ride, dude, and he just runs up and finishes it. He's like, I did it. You know, and I mean, it can, so like the thing that I've discovered too is, I want to be more event oriented, like you're talking about putting it on the calendar and doing it. And I need to do that more because there's always a gig and there's always something I need to do. Right. And I love what I do for work so much that I'm a workaholic and I struggle with that. But the thing that we've found that's been so helpful, so any of you parents out there, future parents, I love this idea that Scott has of like the hard container, the time that you carve for it. But also I've found this incredible like sense of connection with my son with just the 15 minute moment that happens. Like he wants to do it if it's raining. I mean, and like, man, it's amazing. You know, my daughter would rather eat ground glass than go on a bike ride. She's not into it, but he's like, we're looking for frogs. And anyway, dude, it's, you know, and I know we're going to talk about slap bass. I love talking about slap bass, but also it's really good to connect with you as a dad, as a fellow dad too, man, because I see you with your kids. I see how you and Lisa interact, and you just need to know, man, it makes me want to be better. Every time I see you guys do that stuff, it makes me want to be better.
Me too, dude. I want to be better. I think that like I'm really invested in it. You know, it's like sometimes you think, I'm not sure about you, but like sometimes I'll kind of sort of mull over something for like 6 months. That emotion will be there, but and then it just sort of like a volcano. It's sort of like it reaches the peak and then it's like, you know, like. Your version was better. Mine just sounded like a wet fart, but there you go. And that's the time for me now. I'm just sort of like I need to freaking figure this out. I need to figure this Rubik's Cube of parenting out a little bit. I need to find that connection with the kids. I'm really looking forward to it as well. And yes, we are going to be talking about slap bass today. And actually, what we should do, dude, let's do a two-parter. We've got so many notes down here. I'm just looking at my notes down here, right? Let's do a two-parter. Let's not try and squeeze it all into one because I think we'll be doing it a disservice. So let's do quick housekeeping first, right? housekeeping. First of all, the most important thing, and yes, it is slap bass related, is that Ian and I are releasing a brand new course next week called the Slap Accelerator.
I can't believe it's coming out, dude. It's finally coming out.
It's finally coming out.
Yes.
And it is awesome.
It is
Ian,
awesome.
like, we have never done anything like this before. You know, it actually, like all great things, this idea happened in the pub. It actually happened in my local pub where Ian and I and Eric were in the pub sitting around a table, and we were talking about, I can't remember what we were talking about, but at some point we were talking about, we want to do a new course. We're like, what should the new course be? And of course, at some point we just thought, hey, we should be the Slap Bass Accelerator. We should do a Slap Bass Accelerator because Slap Bass is freaking awesome.
Dude, it's awesome. Well, do you remember though, you're like, it'd be fun to make a new accelerator. We haven't done one in a while. Like, what should we do?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it should be the metronome. Do you remember? I was like,
yeah.
Phil.
Yeah.
Dude, and you were like a couple ciders in, and you were like, I don't know. Is there? You're like, yeah, the metronome. You're like, yeah, and I'm like, yes, it should. I think that is the thing that everyone. You're like, yeah, but is there anything more fun, maybe, or is there? And I'll never forget Eric being like, slap bass is pretty fun.
yeah.
And I was like, slap bass is pretty fun. Oh my God. And I mean, and then we just ran with it. And we created, I am going to say it, man. I'm going to say it. Maybe you've said it. I'm going to say it too. I think it's the best slap bass resource out there. That exists.
The best slap bass course that exists, bar none. It
100%.
is phenomenal. It's like, and it was such a blast creating it. Ian, so we've never presented anything either together, which is so cool.
Yeah, I know.
We did it together. You came over here for like a long time.
Yeah, 2 weeks, dude. Yeah.
2 weeks, and we were in the studio every single day recording this in the most extreme heat. There was sweat. There wasn't many blood. There wasn't any blood, or there wasn't any tears. But there was a few tears. We shed some tears when we were playing together, actually. So there was no blood, but there was tears and sweat that went into the creation of this course. And it is freaking awesome. It's going to be delivered over like 16 or 17 weeks, so it's several months long. We had in the video, for anybody that signs up for this course. I've mentioned it already, but it opens for enrollment next week, and we'll be opening it once a year for enrollment. But if anybody signs up for this, you're just going to have so much fun just watching the videos, because we had just such a blast recording it. At the end of every day, we just sort of looked at each other and were like, this is amazing. It was so fun recording this thing.
There were times where Scott was like you would look at me like wide eyes, and you'd be like, I'm only going to play slap bass from now on. You know that, right? That's all I do now. Slap bass is so awesome that's all I'm going to do. All I'm going to do. And I was like, yeah, me too. I mean, man, it was so fun. Scott wrote a bunch of riffs for it. I wrote some riffs for it. Together with Eric, we put together a program that takes you from really having no, it really takes you from this beginner level of having no, technique for it, right? Or maybe you've worked on a certain kind of technique, or maybe you've never approached it at all. We will take you from any place you're at, whether that's I've never slapped the bass before, all the way up to, well, I've actually slapped a bunch of Flea lines and Claypool lines, but I'm kind of looking to expand, all the way into Victor Wooten stuff, double thumbing. We talk about that, but it doesn't start out at a place that is inaccessible. It starts out at a place where you can dive in and really learn of the proper technique, what we think are some really good best practices from the ground up, build your technique. And then, God, it's then it's just about grooves and bass lines. And I mean, man, what we discovered is, in a sneaky way, we almost did sort of make a metronome course. I mean, because the whole thing is about time, right? It's you're slapping the bass and you're playing drums. mean, you're playing rhythms on this instrument and you've got to be locked in. It helps everything. If you're like, no, I don't want to play slap bass. No, you do want to play slap bass because it helps your groove. It's unbelievable technique. It's not just a party trick. It will actually it will round you as a player. And that's what we found too, man. When I was trying to learn your riffs, you were trying to learn my riffs. We were like, damn. And then once we got it, we're like, it's high-fiving and
yeah, it was incredible. And I think that, like, for me, it was an interesting one for me because I have never really practiced any slap bass really ever. It's not something that we've talked about this before, and I kind of like silently labeled myself as not a slap. I don't do that. I don't do slap. Yeah, I can teach it a bit in some videos, on YouTube and stuff like that, but it's not really what I do. And I've been playing for nearly 25 years, maybe over 25 years now. And up until the last really 12 or 18 months, that was the reality. I just, I wasn't a slap bass, but I didn't do slap.
Yes.
And there's some players like that. There's some great players that don't do that. But I really freaking missed out. And it has been, so just for everybody's, I actually started getting back into, or not even back into it, because I was never really into it. I kind of started deep diving into it because of Ian, because he did, I saw him playing and I was like, wow, he's not playing slap bass. It's not all about pyrotechnics. He's just playing freaking awesome grooves that can't be played without they don't sound the same,
right,
if you don't play them with the thumb. And that really piqued my interest. And then you did that course for us where you were working on one of the Corey Wong tunes.
Yeah.
That tune that you'd done with Corey Wong.
Yeah.
And man, that riff, I was like, oh, I need to learn this stuff. So I started playing around with changing my technique, about 12, 18 months ago, changing my technique, trying to copy that stuff that Ian was doing. And it's just been a roller coaster ride of just freaking awesomeness, to be honest. Just sort of really falling in love with everything slap bass is over the last 12 or 18 months, discovering I can use that, because I didn't ever feel natural at it ever.
Right.
Always felt like a struggle. And I talk about it in the course. Obviously, we talk about it in great detail, but just for everybody now, I really struggled with it. I didn't feel I was natural at it. And then over the last 12 to 18 months, we've just been working on this stuff. And a lot of that stuff that I've been working on is in the Slap Bass Accelerator, because I'm kind of sort of telling my story along the way, saying, hey,
yes,
I actually freaking struggled with all of this stuff. I couldn't do any of that stuff. I couldn't do any of the double thumb stuff. I used this particular technique that kind of felt like it made my slap lines sound a little bit anemic and weird, and I couldn't slap on the D and the G strings ever because it just sounded completely whack and crappy. So I break that down in the course and we get into it, and it's just, I know that we're kind of sort of gushing about it at the minute, but for me, I'm just really, really proud of it. I'm really, really proud of it. I think it's a freaking awesome course. I think that anybody that goes through this is going to have not only a great educational experience and, they're going to have a great educational experience, but they're also going to have a complete kind of awakening to what slap bass is and should be. I think that's what I believe when they go through it, because it's so much deeper and cooler than I ever gave it, credit for. And then the third thing is that they're going to have a freaking laugh because we have so much fun. If you listen to the podcast and you like the vibe of the podcast, it's basically the vibe of the podcast, but we're teaching slap bass for 16 or 17 weeks. And as Ian was saying, we've structured it in this really systematic way that introduces all of the individual elements of slap bass one step at a time.
Yes.
And gets you to introduce it in a really musical way. So we're not just hey, here's the thumb. We introduce the thumb. Yeah. We introduce the thumb, and then we work on, okay, well, how do we use the thumb? How do we get the right technique? How do we actually play it within grooves?
Yes.
Just the thumb. Then we introduce the pops, and we're learning to use pops within that, within the groove, using drum tracks, using backing tracks. making we can do that in a musical way. Then we start adding the left hand slaps, and all of this stuff gets added in a really systematic way. And along the journey as well, we're also every, I think, 3 or 4 weeks in the program, we do like a style deep dive.
Yeah.
So we're talking just about Flea for an entire week, and then we're talking just about Larry Graham for an entire week, then just about Marcus Miller for an entire week, and then who else do we do?
Victor.
Who is it? And then we do Victor Wooten for an entire week, and we're taking riffs that, you know, like stylistically really represent those individuals as bass players. We're breaking them riffs down. We're teaching them. It is freaking awesome.
It is awesome. Yeah. And, you know, and it's funny because I love that you are like humble enough a guy to talk about your trajectory with it. I actually think that's really, really powerful. The thing that I want to say is, you know, you hear Scott saying like, oh, I never really did it. And, oh, you know, and it sounded kind of crap and I really struggled. But you wrote some riffs too, like, and you're so nice to like throw it my way. And so like you saw me do it, but you wrote some of the baddest ass riffs, and I struggled with it too, you know. So here you're setting me up to be like, oh, you know, Ian's got it down, but everybody has a slightly different style. So then Scott would write these things from his perspective that were just like the sickest bass riffs with just a move in them, you know. And nothing that we wrote is like the hardest thing you'll ever do, but every time you try to learn somebody else's thing, there's always like, oh, this isn't how I would do it, so you know, you have to adjust. And so I was doing that for the way that Scott writes and the way he thinks, and he was really doing that for me. And as a result of that, we both got better, like along the course, you know, like along the way, we're improving, you know. And I mean, there are times where I was like, oh my God, Scott, okay, you know, like the camera's not rolling and I'm going, oh my God, show me that thing. How do you do that thing? You know, and vice versa. And it was so fun to see it come together, because I feel like even over those 2 weeks, you and I got better at it, you know. So
dude, like, I got way better.
Like the program works, you know, it works.
Yeah, like it really does. I got way better. Listen, well, let's just do some housekeeping, and then because we've been going for a while now, so let's do some housekeeping, and then I'd love to just jump back into the slap bass thing, and I want to know, think about, while I'm doing this housekeeping, Ian, think about, who are you, like, for somebody that has not listened to slap bass, who are the top 3 people they should go and listen to give them a flavor of what it might be, you know, to get into? Just think about it. I'm gonna do the housekeeping.
Yep.
Super quick. Housekeeping. First of all, obviously, we've released we're about to release the Slap Accelerator. Secondly, we have got an awesome SBL mentor session coming up early next week on Monday, October the 31st. Jonathan Herrera is going to be in, and he's going to be talking about studio shenanigans for all you bass players who want to learn stuff about the studio. And also, if you don't already know, every single Monday we do a live session inside the membership. Every single Monday with people like Gary Willis and John Patitucci and Ian right here and myself and Danny Mo Morris and Todd Johnson and Ariana Kapp and Rufus Philpott, all of these really fantastic educators that are so amazing, and I'm so pleased that we've got them to be part of what we're building here at SBL. Every single Monday we do a live stream for the members, and Jonathan Herrera is on this week, October 31st, so take a look out for that. And then lastly, apparently next week it's going to be Halloween, and to celebrate Halloween, Mr. Ian Allison here is going to be doing a spooky video over on YouTube for you to keep a lookout to. So that is it. That's the end of housekeeping this week. Now, give us, who's your top 3, Ian? Top 3 slap bass players.
I mean, I feel like we talked about them because we really wanted to focus. Like, we did these artist deep dives for the Slap Accelerator. We're like, who are the 4 people that we really need to talk about? And they are Flea, they are Larry Graham, they're Marcus Miller, and they're Victor Wooten. So for me, if I had to pick 3, the people that really influenced me, I think first on slap bass Man, I think it was probably Victor. By way of some other folks, I really loved Billy Gould, who played with Faith No More, and I really loved
Faith
Flea.
No More, dude.
Yeah, man. And I loved Brian Bromberg, but when I really started to like pay attention and think that it was incredible was probably with Victor. And then as a result of Victor and his incredible teaching and just his his giving of his influences, he's always really sure to give credit where credit is due. I fell in love with Larry Graham. I mean, Larry Graham with Sly and the Family Stone, but specifically actually with Graham Central Station. Those records are so fun and cool. And then there's all these great YouTube videos of Larry doing his instructional video that he did in Japan. Yeah. It's unbelievable. And he's talking about his slap technique and his effects. And so for me, and Larry, make no mistake, Larry is the godfather. Larry is the OG. He's the guy that did it. I do a big deep dive on Larry, and I'll just give you a quick taste. He's in church with his mother playing bass, and the drummer didn't show up. And he was like, oh, and so, like so many things, so many great things that are born out of necessity, slap bass was one of those things. We started hitting the strings for the bass drum, but just doing that with his thumb and finger and boom, bang, boom, boom, bang, playing octave figures and creating a groove out of percussion and notes on the bass. And so to not know about Larry Graham is criminal in terms of your trajectory on the instrument. Just knowing about him and what he has given to this community is critical.
Absolutely.
So those guys for me, Victor and Larry, probably for sure.
So Victor, Larry, and who's yours? Flea as well.
Yeah, Flea. I will have to say too. I'm going to zag and do Michelle Ndegeocello. Michelle Ndegeocello, man. I mean, not maybe necessarily known as primarily a slap bass player, but she has one of the sickest pockets. Like when I hear her slap or just play the bass in general, I think, man, her pocket on that first single she had called "If That's Your Boyfriend, He Wasn't Last Night." Man, it is insane. Her pocket is so cool. It's so hip. She always played kind of old basses, kind of vintage sounds. I was really inspired by her. I mean, yes, there was the pyrotechnics of Flea, and I thought that was sweet. But where I really started to feel it musically was Victor, Larry, Michelle. Those three.
Okay, so for me,
yeah,
the first time I heard slap bass, at least when I noticed it, was with Flea. So he was definitely my first influence. So if you haven't checked out Flea before, like most people listen to this will have, but if you haven't, man, the guy is so ferocious when it comes to slap bass.
Yes.
He's a monster. And what really sort of jumped out to me was the kind of sort of the ferocity of it. It wasn't kind of Victor Wooten's got all of this kind of sort of stuff that's really, really complex and difficult. Well, Flea, even though what he's playing sounds really complex and difficult, it's actually, when you strip it back, it's a lot simpler than what Victor's doing.
Sure.
But he freaking hits that bass. It was just sort of it was aggressive,
Yes.
And I was coming from a place where I was listening to rock stuff, right? I was listening to Rage Against the Machine and Green Day and so it was right in alignment with that, right? But it was, Flea rocked my world when I first heard him. Shout out to, again, Funky Monks, the documentary as well. If you've not listened to Funky Monk, watched Funky Monks, it is so cool. It's probably on YouTube now. So definitely it's a black and white sort of it's kind of, it's a loose kind of behind the scenes video of the making of Blood Sugar Sex Magic, which is just an incredible album. But you see Flea on there playing his wall bass. It's so cool. So definitely check that shit out. Anyway, so yes. Flea's my first guy. Next up would have to be Victor for me. Although with a big caveat that the pyrotechnic stuff, when he plays all of that crazy, what What's that? Dugga, 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 dugga. Do you know, is it classical thump and stuff like that?
Classical thump,
Is that what
yep.
Yeah, that has never, like, none of that stuff has ever done it for me. Like, I don't listen to classical thump and think, yeah, I want to learn that. I actually, and this is no disrespect to Victor, I actually don't want to learn it. I'm just like, that is not what I want to play like. I don't want to play like that. But, man, just when he's playing the groove stuff, he's incredible.
It's
you
crazy.
know, and that riff that we break down in the you know that riff, right?
Yes.
That we break down in the Slap Accelerator. When there was a particular riff that I heard, and it was that riff, and that for me just like blew my mind. And it was just it is incredible. It's hard to play. It's complex, but it's still like it's a groove. It's not like the Pyrotechnic solo bass show, which isn't sort of like which I didn't resonate with as so much. And then finally, it's Marcus Miller all the way. Marcus Miller for me all the way. And for me, the reason why I resonated so much with when I listened to Marcus is that it's all groove. It's all groove.
Yes, it is.
No matter whatever's going on is just, it's there to support the actual music and the groove. And that is just so freaking awesome, which is why when I listen to Marcus, I'm just like, oh, and it's also, it's lots of different elements with Marcus. It's that everything's so musical and it's there to support the song, even though it's like super cool and like crazy, crazy flash as well at the times. Like when he plays Teen Town, oh my word.
No.
Like insane. Teen Town with it. Slaps Teen Town's bonkers, right? So there's that, but it's also his technique is actually really, really clean. If you look at the old school guys like Larry Graham or Lewis Johnson, like it's kind of sort of like, it's not as clinical as Marcus is.
It's more
and I wouldn't
visceral.
say that, and I wouldn't say that Marcus is overly clinical, but man, he has got really clean technique. So it's that. And then also it's just that he plays bass lines with it, and like I had that great conversation with him on like recently, a few months back, and he started talking about why he originally started slapping on all of the sessions that he was doing. And the story goes like this. And if you haven't, I'm not sure we've released the interview yet, but if we have, go check it out. But he's like, so like, lots of like the studio guys were getting Sadowski preamps in their basses. And he said, so he wanted a Sadowski preamp in his jazz bass. So Roger fit this, this Sadowski, well, actually it wasn't a Sadowski, but it was an active preamp in his Fender bass. Mm-hmm. And he said, and Roger was like, these are the settings. And Marcus was like, okay, they're the settings. And he never changed them. So he didn't change the settings. He was only like 20 or something, or 19 at the time.
Amazing.
Yeah, so he didn't change the settings. And what he found is when he was in the studio, because of those particular settings, when he played fingerstyle, it didn't cut through. But when he played with his thumb, it sounded awesome and cut right through the mix. So he said, he was like, so I just started playing everything with my thumb. I just started slapping everything because it cut right through the mix with that particular EQ setting. And
because Roger scooped all the mid-range out of his instrument.
Yeah, Roger just scooped it all out, and that was his sound, and that Marcus had to just live with that sound. So that was kind of like the birth of the Marcus Miller sound, which was fascinating to me. But but they're my top three, man.
Incredible.
I'm just looking. I'm looking. There are top three. I'm looking at the list. I think that we leave it for the part two, man. I think we leave it for the part two. Sorry, guys, for leaving you hanging. You're going to have to sort of like come back next week and we're going to be talking about more slap bass. But just to tell you, I've just got like, let me pull up this list right here. Where are we? Next week, we're going to be talking about, more of our journeys with slap bass. And we're going to be talking about specific tips as well. If you want to get into slap bass, what you should be thinking about. I think we should also talk a little bit about setup as well, Ian. I know that, how you set up your bass is really important in terms of slap bass. So let's cover that. I think it's going to be a great conversation. And with that said, boom, let's call it.
Gonna call it. I'm even gonna bring my bass. I'm gonna bring my bass next week, plug it in, and even demonstrate some stuff. So whether you're watching or listening, you're gonna get a little slap bass tutorial next week as well.
I'm bursting just to say slap a bass, but I'm not gonna do it. Anyway, dudes, take it easy. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Slap a bass.